Hey guys, just a quick note before we get started. Evo is traveling over the Christmas and New Year break, and I have family and friends in town that I'll be introducing to the wonders of Thai street food, so we're going to take a few weeks off to deal with that. We'll both return as usual on the 3rd of January 2018. Happy holidays, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the new year. On this episode, we discuss what happens when you open your door a bit too early and a motorbike taxi smashes into it. Why? Because it happened to us last week.
So before you get behind the wheel, check out this fender bender of an episode of the Bangkok podcast.
Sawadee krap and welcome to the Bangkok podcast. My name is Greg Jorgensen, who escaped the frozen Canadian tundra for the potholed streets of Bangkok in 2001 and never left.
And I am Evo Terra, an American expat living full-time in Bangkok since the beginning of 2016. Thanks for joining us here in the Big Mango.
Right on. Now, first, I just want to say a very quick thank you to our patrons who help support the show. And among the cool rewards that our patrons get is access to a weekly bonus show, which we usually record right before this show. So this week we talked about, we talked about Star Wars. Boo. We talked about my lost care package from Canada that finally arrived after 7 or 8 weeks, and also just how bloody loud Bangkok is. And I even recorded a little bit of ambient audio from the mall last night just to prove my point, which I also inserted into that cool little bonus episode. So if you would like to join the ranks of our fine patrons and get bonus content, early access to shows, and awesome swag, just head over to patreon.com/Bangkok podcast.
Now, before we get started, we need to mention a recent news story from Bangkok, which is rather appropriate considering the topic of tonight's show. You, listener, may recall we discussed traffic back on episode 2.27. This is 2.63, so, long time ago. We talked about a show, we did an episode called Blood on the Highway, Thailand's 7 Deadly Days of Songkran. Now, on that episode, we mentioned that Thailand had the horrible distinction of being the second most deadly country in the world for road fatalities, trailing only behind Libya, I believe, which is a terrible, no one wants that honor. So I'm very happy to report that after much work from everyone in Thailand, we did it. We are no longer the second worst. Nope. We are number 1, baby. Yeah.
We're number one. We're number 1.
Good God. It was only a matter of time. Only a matter of time. So insane. Libya now has fallen out down to the top. They're only in top 3 now. They're no longer number 1. So that's amazing.
It's crazy. And this one study in the Bangkok Post, or this one study that the Bangkok Post story cited, they said that Thailand's estimated road traffic death rate per 100,000 people stands at 36.2 this year, followed by Malawi at 35 and Liberia at 33.7. I think it said also that 8 of the 10 countries were in Africa.
So good job, Thailand, I guess.
Yeah, it's not something to be proud of. And there in the story, they talk about all kinds of things. Oh, we should maybe force everyone to use dashboard cameras, or we should do blah, 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 blah. The first thing that comes to my mind is, how about training? At no time during my automobile learning training test did I drive on a real road.
Yep.
And how about the police start enforcing the laws instead of pulling people over, and then they refuse to take a breathalyzer test because they have money or they're well known or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I see cops all the time driving, in a pack of motorbikes, and around them are 5 different people not wearing helmets. And it's got to be enforced. But even before that, here's the deal. I don't know how it works in your country, but I know in my country that now in 2017, if someone drives around on a motorcycle with a 4-year-old child not wearing a helmet, there would be outrage by the regular citizenry around them. Everyone wears a seatbelt. Not putting your child in a seatbelt and driving around will get you kicked out of communities. It's not about being arrested. It is culturally not a thing that you do anymore. It used to be
social ostracism.
Yes, with less ostriches, but nonetheless, yes, that be ostracizing from the culture. So it's not going to happen tomorrow. enforcement's going to help, but until it is culturally seen as a terrible thing, you are a bad human being, bad parent, just all around bad person. Until that mentality changes, that there can keep you will keep your number one status or somewhere in the top Thailand. It's got to change from the people have to make the change. That's it.
Yeah, it's got to come from the bottom down, bottom up, not the top down. So, well, it's actually a related topic because on this episode, we're going to talk about something that happened to Evo and I last week. And before we get into specifics, let me set the scene and I'll let Evo take it from there. So, Evo, you and I were in an Uber and we were on our way to pick up the very special handmade gifts that we're going to be sending out to our top tier patrons soon.
Yeah.
And we got near to our stop in the Uber, and I was sitting behind the driver on the right-hand side, and you were sitting on the left-hand side. And I instructed the Uber driver to pull over, which he did. And over to you. What happened next?
Then bad things ensued, I believe is the way that is said. As you said, we pulled over. It looked to me like we were pulling into one of those little faux driveway things where the curb itself has been cut away where a car could pull in. Now, the driver didn't pull in, but the driver simply pulled over. We were in a very not busy part of Bangkok. We were kind of in the deep soys, if you will, but there wasn't a lot of traffic around us. I think to my knowledge, we were the only car on that road as we pulled over. We're approaching an intersection. Driver pulls over, and I'm on the left side. I pop the door handle and open the car door, and in just milliseconds after doing that, I hear and feel thump, and then hear a motorbike engine rev up high and someone starts screaming immediately because I had opened the door into a motorbike that was passing us at the exact same time I was opening the door. Oops.
Oops. Yeah, and there's something, for those of you who have been in a car accident, there's something about the sound of metal hitting metal or plastic or whatever. There's something about a car accident, the sound that is just sudden and loud and impactful. It's like getting hit in the chest with a hammer. And so I immediately knew what happened because it's almost a rite of passage. Granted, it's never happened to me, but I know a lot of people who it's happened to. But thankfully, it wasn't as bad as it sounded.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think that it was, but at the time we didn't really know what had happened. So when we got out, we recognized what had happened. So while the driver had pulled over to the left, we drive on the left side of the road here in Thailand. While the driver had pulled to the left, there was still a little room, not a lot of room, but a little room that the motorbike taxi decided to go ahead and shoot through, because we do that on motorcycles. We drive all the way on the left between the curb and the traffic. Sure. So even though this Uber driver had pulled all the way over, it probably had signaled. I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt because we'd been telling him this is a good place to stop for a while.
He was a safe, courteous driver for all intents and purposes up to that point. So yeah,
seemed to be that way, but nonetheless, as the motorbike is trying to shoot through that little bitty tiny gap, which couldn't have been, I don't know, not even a meter, probably way less than that. That's when he probably was trying to take advantage of going up on that little pseudo driveway thing and swinging around them. But he didn't make it that far because I think my door impacted one of the two unhelmeted passengers that I mentioned. Two
unhelmeted passengers.
Yeah, and so they went ass over tea kettle, and I think the one in the middle, there was one in the middle who wound up with an injured right forearm and or hand or wrist or something. I don't know. Looked like it was in kind of bad shape. But clearly shooting through a gap that he probably should not have been in. But yeah, whose fault with it? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure what happened was I popped the door open and popped somebody with said door.
It took about probably close to an hour for this all to get settled.
Yeah.
But what happened next was that you and I got out and we're just like, I don't know what to do. Let's just wait here. I mean, you can't run off. That's just human decency.
Yeah, and as soon as we got stopped, you might remember, Greg, where there was no traffic before, suddenly 15 motorbikes, boom.
Oh my God!
Like within seconds, it seemed like the whole everybody who has a motorbike in that particular whatever district of Thailand was there on scene.
Thailand's second national sport after Takraw is getting involved in road incidents.
I guess
because
so.
there was about 15 or 20 people surrounding the site of this accident within 1 minute.
The amazing thing was that no one, and from what I remember, because right, you and I were standing there going, well, we can't run off, as you said. So we don't know what's going to happen next, but we're going to find out what's going to happen next because we're obviously involved in this. But it was very few people were either looking at or acknowledging us. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I think generally, I mean, obviously, no one spoke English, or if they did, it was a very basic English, which is fine.
Yep.
We were not in a tourist-heavy zone. This is sort of out in the boonies. So yeah, I did hear the word farang being thrown around quite a bit, probably
Yeah.
because people asking what happened, what happened.
Sure.
I think that I got the sense that it was just sort of like, oh, like I don't even want to. Not that I'm even able to get involved with these guys. I just don't want to. Let's wait for someone more qualified or someone who speaks English or a police officer or someone to come along. So it was basically just half an hour of us waiting around while an ambulance showed up, pulled out a stretcher, got this woman on the stretcher. I don't think she was injured too badly. Her right hand seemed to be bruised quite badly, but it wasn't broken. She was moving it around.
Do you remember, did they put her on the stretcher or did they just help her into the ambulance? I don't recall.
Well, the thing was, they pulled the stretcher out, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is a bit of overkill. Like she's clearly okay."
Yeah, you did say that, right?
Yeah, but then it was one of these stretchers that like they clicked it and it turned into a chair,
Ah,
like a
okay. I
chair on
missed that
wheels.
part.
Yeah, so she
Okay.
basically sat in the chair, and then I guess they put her in the ambulance and took off because by that time the Uber driver had pulled forward around the corner a little bit.
Yeah, we thought he was gone
Yeah,
because I think it was right after the ambulance either got there or left that the two community police officers showed up.
right. One was yeah. Was that what it said on their badge? The community
Now,
police.
on the hat, the one of them said community police, and they had on the vests, the reflective vests that said community police. Well, it said they just said police, but one's hat said community police, which I'm assuming that means they were more like the volunteer people that do help with crossing guards and
Yeah.
various things. They weren't like real cops. They certainly didn't have any firearms on their persons, but they were just talking to everybody else. But they never once came and talked to us.
No. And then it was, of course, you had the local crazy lady who was there dressed in rags, and she was giving us the thumbs up and saying, "Might been lie," which is don't worry about it. And then she brought me this like half-liter plastic cup of water from who knows where, which was very refreshing. And then I took a sip and sort of offered it to my Uber driver, and he gave me a look like, "You drank that?" So that was the end of it for me. But and then the Uber driver who obviously was like, oh god, like he had every right to be pretty annoyed at us. I think you specifically. Let's be honest.
Me, you're right. You're right. Yep.
So he was sort of like on the phone to who knows who, and he was making all kinds of phone calls and sending messages. And he was like, "You come sit in my car." So we went and sat in his. We were like, "Okay, we don't know anything about what to do, so we'll just do whatever anyone says."
Right. We're very, very, very pliable people.
Yeah. So he's like, "Come sit in my car." So all right. So we go sit in his car, and I guess we're gonna go to the hospital. That's
Yeah, that was the assumption.
Yeah,
Sure.
that makes sense. Okay. And then I noticed that a couple of motorcycle taxi guys who had come out from the woodwork were standing around the car because I think they thought we were going to take off.
Yeah, that's very likely.
And then he got out of the car, and then we got out of the car, and then more yelling and screaming. And eventually some guy showed up who seemed to be a person of some import. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He was just a guy, and everyone seemed to be talking to him.
So I'm pretty sure that guy was the leader of the local taxi mafia, don't you?
Possibly, maybe. Who knows? Who knows?
I mean, I don't know. He spoke some English, asked where we were from and where we were going. I think he actually said, "Where are you from?" And I heard him saying, "Where are you going?" which was odd. And so I was trying to answer that question. Yeah. And then do you remember when the cop from the railroad showed up?
Yes. Yeah. The railway police, which was interesting because it was close to a train station.
Yep. Yeah, so I guess the closest, because I went back there, had to go back to the scene of the crime, and there is a railway police station, probably just maybe 150 meters from where the accident happened. So I'm assuming that was the closest police station, and it looked like every other police station you would see here in Bangkok. It just was railway police stations. Somehow he got the call, but even when he came over, he certainly didn't talk to us at all. He was much more interested in checking the validation and verification of the driver who was in the car when the accident happened. They had a long chat about what? I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Now, this guy that came up to the scene, this taxi mafia guy or whoever he was, he asked us, "Are you the big boss?" Now, that to me seemed to indicate that he thought, after talking to the Uber driver, that we were like he was our driver. But in Thailand, they say big boss to mean like the top guy, the head guy. So that's when you said, no, he works for Uber. And then it clicked. I'm like, I think Uber is technically illegal in Thailand. So I don't know if it's good to say that or not.
Well, clearly it wasn't good to say that because our driver admonished me afterwards. Do not say I work for Uber. So I was like, I can call the damn thing on an app. As long as I can do that, it's legal, in my opinion, right? It's not like we use some underground hack. We have a bricked phone that we got from Myanmar, anything crazy like that. It was on there, so I don't know what the big deal about that was. I think it likely in this particular case could have been some of the animosity because in Bangkok, the Uber drivers, some of them have been beaten up.
Right, they're not very popular. So that's often a problem. So I'm not sure whether it was a legal thing or something like that. I asked a few friends after the fact, and they said it was probably an insurance thing. So the insurance probably wouldn't want to get involved if you're an Uber driver. I don't know the legalities of it, but that was just what I got out of it. And we should also say the car was not damaged at all. Like the door could open and close properly. There was a slight little sort of scratch patch area on the bottom corner of the door. But besides that, you wouldn't have known anything had happened.
No, and again, I don't think the door struck the motorbike. I'm relatively certain that mark is from it hitting a leg of one of the people. I think that's all that it was, and it probably buffed out with a piece of Kleenex. There was certain. I don't believe I actually any metal struck any metal, at least from there. So right, so our car was not damaged in any way. It obviously caused a little bit of damage, but it is what it is.
So at this point, you and I had gotten in and out of the Uber 2 or 3 times. Most people had left. It was hot. Most people had left and lost interest. There was a few people still hanging around. One of the women who was on the back of the motorbike was still there. Yep. At no point had anyone spent more than 30 seconds talking to us.
Yeah, and no one other than that crazy chicken lady. No one asked for IDs. None of the cops asked for IDs. No one wanted passports. No one other than the taxi mafia guy asking maybe where we're from. That was it. The Uber driver took my phone number.
Yeah,
that was it.
That was it. And how this all played out was that we got in the Uber again, and he was still on the phone. We were still on the phone, and we're like, "Oh, let's get out again." So we got out of the Uber, and everyone had gone. There was no one left.
Right. Everyone.
The road was empty, back to normal.
Yeah.
And we were like, well, what do we do now? Like we said before, we wanted to be responsible and follow it up at least to make sure everything was cool. But there was nothing to do. The Uber driver said, okay, you can go now. And I'm like, okay. In my mind, I'm thinking you have no authority to say when I can go or not.
Right. But none of the police seemed to care anything at all about it. So, and now with the leftover victim and all of the other moto taxis that were gone, it seemed like leaving was an okay thing to do. So we left.
Yeah, we left.
It was simple as that. Yeah,
and that was the end of it.
So I got a phone call from the guy the next day. I think it was the next day. Yeah, the next day I got a phone call from our Uber driver, and that phone call did not go well. In that he was speaking very good English originally when we were in the car with him, but it all went to hell because that wasn't working at all. We finally reverted to communicating via text message.
Okay,
and that seemed to be better for both of us. And yeah, I was going to pull it up to have a copy of it here, but apparently I didn't actually friend him online, so it's not easy for me to get to. But I can recall the gist of the conversation. The gist of the conversation was he said, okay, I want you to pay for damages. And I wrote back to him, you and I, driver, looked at your vehicle and agreed there were no damages to your vehicle. And then he said, I want you to pay for medical expenses. To which I replied, you were not injured. You did not incur any medical expenses.
Hmm.
And then he wanted them for the girl who was injured. It was for her. And I don't even think I replied to that one because it was like, what? No, I'm not. You're not the intermediary here. If she would like to come after someone to me specifically for damages, you let her get in touch with me. I didn't say that because it was like you're not the person for me to be speaking with. So after a few other those text messages back and forth, it finally dried up. He stopped messaging because he couldn't tell me anything other than he wanted money for pain and suffering that he did not incur. So that was the end of that. Weird.
It was a really weird experience, yeah, and I didn't learn anything out of it. I still don't know what to do if you're in an accident or if you door someone. I don't know what to do besides follow the person to the hospital and wait for them to tell you to do something. But it was strange. But later on that evening, what I did do is I looked up the Land Traffic Act of 1979, which is the Thai law that governs roads in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And just to kind of see if I could get a bead on who was at fault here, because like I said, the way Thailand works is it's often which, I guess it works this way in most places, but which law trumps the other laws that you broke.
Right.
So like, yeah, you broke that law, but no one cares about that law. What we're really here for is this bigger law.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what you're going to get nailed on. So like I said earlier, I think the legality of Uber is sort of in question here, or it's at the very least, it's a gray area. Was the motorcycle at fault? Were you at fault? Was the driver at fault? I certainly wasn't because I was just a passenger in the car. So I looked up a little bit and I pulled up some relevant paragraphs here. So I'm going to just read through them here. So Section 35 says the driver of a truck, passenger vehicle, motorcycle, vehicle of low speed or traveling at lower speed than those of other vehicles moving in the same direction shall keep to the curbside of the roadway as close as possible. So if the motorbike said I was traveling slower than the car, I was legally supposed to be in the left lane closest to the curb.
Well, to jump in there, that's the law that gets cited when a police officer pulls motorbikes over for being anywhere other than the far left lane. That is interpreted that motorcycles must keep to the curb side of the roadway, which is not what the law says, and it's not what the law intended to say. Basically, it is simply slow traffic, keep left. That's it. That's really all that law is intended to say. If you are purposely, because whatever reason, if you travel slower than everybody else, keep left. Just like in America, fast traffic keeps, or slow traffic keep right. It's the same because we drive on the wrong side of the road. That's all that does is say, stay left. Doesn't do anything more than that.
Well, it says keep to the curb side of the roadway as close as possible. So
yep. Keep left. That's really all that means. That is slow traffic, keep left. Just written out in way too many words.
Section 45 says no driver shall overtake another vehicle from the left side unless A, the vehicle to be overtaken is making a right turn or has given the signal that he is going to make a right turn, he, not she, or B, the roadway is arranged with two or more traffic lanes in the same direction. Now, This was a single lane, two-way, like it was a two-lane road, one lane going forward, one lane going the other way.
So that law says no passing on the left.
Right. That law is passing on the left. But Section 55 says the driver shall not stop his vehicle except stopping close to the curbside and that there being no bus lane. So was our guy even allowed to stop?
Well, because he was stopped close to the curbside and there was no bus lane there.
Right. Okay.
This looked like a legal stop. It was also, there was no parking signs in there. I did look for that. So I don't know that he was legally able to park there. He might have been too close to an intersection. I'm not sure. But according to this law and the way the real law of people stopping in Thailand works is you pull to the left and you stop. That happens all the time. So I don't think this law trumps that.
Section 121. The rider of a motorcycle shall sit on the saddle provided for the motorcycle rider. Makes sense. If the competent officer specifies in the registration to be able to carry passengers, the passenger shall ride at the back seat provided for the passenger or in the sidecar. There's no specific stipulation here on how many passengers can ride, or none that I could find anyway.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because I thought there was something that talked about that one. Clearly, there were two, and they were riding on the back, but I think two is a large number. And I've never seen a sidecar in Thailand. I so want to see a sidecar.
That would be pretty cool. Section 122 finally says the rider and the passenger of a motorcycle shall wear a motorcycle helmet. The provision under this section is not forced for monks, novices, ascetics, persons of other religions which require wearing of a turban, or any persons under ministerial regulation. So, first of all, you have to wear a motorcycle helmet. These two women on the motorcycle were not wearing helmets.
Right.
But I just thought it was a funny extra thing that if any person's under ministerial regulation, so if you're a government official,
yeah,
or have a turban, or a monk,
which is ridiculous. That's just dumb laws. But nonetheless, you're right. These ladies did not have helmets on, which is clearly a violation of that particular law.
Yeah. So all of these things taken into account, and I am not even close to a lawyer. So
I'm close to a lawyer. No.
Yeah, we have no authority to say one way or another who was at fault. But it seems to me the motorcycle driver was at fault here. But if you or the driver had broken any like major laws, I'm assuming that someone would have followed that up. So yeah. I think what happened was that everyone said like, look, there's nowhere this can go. It's not worth our time to try and fight it for either party. So let's just forget about it and get it over with.
I think two things are clear out of this. One, I am certainly not at fault. And two, it's time for everyone's favorite segment of the show, something called Love, Loathe, or Leave, where we look at one minor aspect of living in Bangkok and find out if it's something that the two of us love about living in Bangkok, loathe about expat life, or if it's something that we hate so much, it just might cause us to leave Thailand. And this week, I have the honors, and I'm going to stay along with this theme of traffic safety and laws. And Greg, how do you feel when some driver of a car approaches an intersection?
I'm with you.
And turns on their emergency hazard flashers and travels straight through the intersection?
Yeah. You know what? I think this might actually be the first love, loathe, or leave where this might border on wanting to make me leave. Because this, I hate it. And it is so unsafe. And it is, in fact, specifically illegal in North America to do that. So hazard flashes here are used for everything. If you're going to parallel park, you pull up beside the parking lot, you put on your emergency flashes. If you're going to go straight through an intersection that doesn't have a light, you put on your emergency flashes. If you want to pull over and buy some Khao Man Gai on the side of the road, you put on your emergency flashes, which probably actually makes sense. But I like that one. They're used not only for emergencies in Thailand, they're used sort of just as a general, hey, I'm doing something here. Everyone watch out. And that something may or may not be completely stupid or illegal or not, but it's basically just a general alert.
Yeah.
But I loathe it. And it's just one of those things, like, it's so obviously dangerous because the reason it's illegal in Canada, and I don't know about the United States, is because if you are watching someone go from the right to the left and he turns on his hazard lights, you can't see the right side.
That's
so
right.
You think he's turning left.
Yep.
Right. So, and the person on the other side of the intersection can only see his right indicator. So they think he's turning right.
That's right.
So it just confuses the hell out of everyone. And it's really dangerous. And I think it's just sort of an indication of the fact here that just this is another stupid little rule that should be enforced because it can have really bad effects.
Yeah, it is a dumb myth that cropped up. I don't know when it happened after vehicles were done. They said, well, I'm not turning left. I'm not turning right. I'm going straight. I should let the person behind me know that I'm going straight. I guess I don't know why that is there, but I read about it every so often, and I've heard other little commentaries here and there about how the appropriate way to do things is this, and they're wrong. They're flat out wrong. It's dangerous for all the reasons that you said. I do loathe it, and yeah, it is definitely one of those borderline leave situations because it is completely contributing. And that's not the only thing, but it is contributing to this ongoing problem of traffic fatalities in this country and other accidents because you're not helping. Back to what you said originally. Take some driver education and learn the right way to do that. Not because your great Uncle Samchai said, go through the intersection with your hazards on. Don't do that.
This takes me back to when I was like 8 years old and me and my sister were learning how to drive a car from my granddad in a big abandoned field. He'd take us out and put us behind the wheel and basically let the car roll forward while we steered, just for fun. And my sister and I used to joke when we were children, hey, why don't we have a going straight signal? Ha ha ha. Isn't that funny? Well, in Thailand, they actually use it. Yeah. The only saving grace for this, I think, is that everyone in Thailand knows what it means.
Yeah.
So that's the only way that I can sort of give it a little bit of leeway here. But yeah, I loathe it. And if I ever leave, I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be, happy to see it in my rear.
So thank you once again to everyone who supports us on Patreon. If you would like for us to say great things about you, which happens from time to time, and also want to get the show early or access to special Patreon bonus content, we do appreciate your support for those that do support us. In fact, it's your fault, patrons. I guess we could push it back on you if we wanted to, since we were going to pick up your gifts for the lovely boxed gift set. Thanks for those of you who support us at that level, and you'll be getting your gifts very soon. If you would like to get in on the party and help keep the show going, it really is the only way that we do fund the show. Go to patreon.com/Bangkok podcast and lend us your support. We really do appreciate it.
And thank you to you for listening to the Bangkok Podcast. If you have something on your mind or you just want to drop us a line to say hello, please leave a comment on bangkokpodcast.com, or you can reach out to me directly on Twitter, where I am BKK Greg.
Or you can leave us a message on Facebook, Twitter, or even Line. We're Bangkok Podcast in most places. We are both very good about responding to your comments, answering your questions, and continuing to spread the heaps of praise that you heap upon us anywhere you post those wonderful things. For Greg Jorgensen, I am Evo Terra. We'll be back here next week with more stories of our lives lived in the City of Angels, right here on the Bangkok Podcast. Chok ti krap! Are we recording?
Yep.
Yay!
Button is red.
Okay.
You know what they say. Red button in morning, sailors are recording, right?
Almost. That actually works, oddly enough.
Very close.
You can't do a segue
Right,
for shit, but you can randomly rhyme things. I love it.